Olly here, and this is the 14th edition of Olly Ranks, where I will be ranking Season 14 of Classic Doctor Who. So, a bit more about Season 14. Season 14 is Tom Baker's third season out of his 7-year run, and it's famous for its ends on certain aspects of the show and the beginning of new aspects that would contribute to the Doctor Who mythology from the onset. Tom Baker and Elizabeth Sladen return, and Liz Sladen actually departs in The Hand of Fear, and she's replaced by Louise Jameson, who plays another popular companion in Leela of the Sever Team. This is also the first season since season 5 not to feature season 5 not to feature units, or in this case, the first season since season 4 not to feature the Brigadier in any way, shape, or form. This is also the last season to be produced by Philip Hinchcliffe, because the BBC had no choice but to give in to Mary Whitehouse's demands and about how Doctor Who was becoming too violent and too dark, especially after the infamous scene in The Deadly Assassin where the Doctor was being drowned, until they pretty much had to sack him and replace him with Graham Williams at the start of season 15. So if you're not familiar with how this works, I'll be ranking all 6 stories from this season from my least favourite to my favourite of this season, and I'll be explaining my reason for the ranking. Place is The Face of Evil. It's not a poor story, but I do feel it's dull in some places. The idea of an insane computer causing a tribal divide was rather good, especially the savage tribe worshipping a god named Zuran in the computer and was treating like some high tech objects as religious objects. And this is also the first appearance of Leela, who joins the Doctor in his travels. She had a great introduction, and she proved that she's very different to previous companions in the past. Tom Baker did a good job in the story, and I really liked the bit of the killer jelly baby, and I liked how how the Doctor realized it was he pretty much caused the issues of this story, because I think he forgot to wipe out some aspect. I think he forgot to remove his personality from the databanks or something like that, and Joanna decided to take on the Doctor's appearance and became mad and schizophrenic and started causing all this hassle. But I do think it could have been better, right, if they removed like some of the laggy parts. And I gave the story a 6.5 out of 10. In fifth place is The Hand of Fear, a fairly good story, and is very well known for being the departure of Sarah Jane Smith. I like how the departure scene was fairly well done. I liked it, but because of how sad and somber it is, and I liked how humorous it was at the same time when the Doctor actually dropped off Sarah, and Sarah realized that the Doctor failed to drop her off in South Croydon, and it was later revealed in the news series that she was dropped off in Aberdeen. The story itself was good, but as I said before, I think it would have worked better as a 6-part as was initially intended. Because I felt that parts 3 and 4 were rushed, and I think I said in my review that the first half could have been on Earth, and the second half could have been on Castria. And I didn't really like how Sarah Jane was vulnerable, but I think Liz Sladen did a good job acting in this story, and I liked how strong the partnership was with the Doctor, how they're pretty much expressing how they care about each other and they don't want to see each other hurt. Eldred was a good villain, but I don't think he was as uber threatening, and his true intention wasn't actually revealed until the last few minutes of part 4, and then pretty much a few minutes after that, he just quickly defeated. So I didn't really like that aspect at all, but I gave the story a 7.5 out of 10. Fourth place is The Mask of Mandragora. And I think the story is very underrated, and I think I would say it's the hidden gem of season 14. I love the location forming, and I liked how the story was set in Renaissance Italy. Tom Baker did a great job in this story, and I liked how he saved the day pretending to be Hieronymus. The side characters were very good. The villains felt very threatening, especially Hieronymus, although I did have one problem with how Sarah Jane was written, because, as I said before, she was a bit vulnerable here. She was kidnapped a few times, almost sacrificed, and then she was even brainwashed to try and kill the Doctor. So it does pretty much add to her vulnerability, but there was some good aspects. I like they were introduced to the new TARDIS exterior, which I actually really like. Like, and the special effects of the story are pretty cool, so I gave that story an 8 out of 10. In third place is The Robots of Death. Well, it's a brilliant story, but I honestly don't think it's a classic as many fans make it out to be. But I do understand and see how it was well beloved. I love the Agatha Christie murder elements we had in this story, namely the whodunit element, but at the same time, I think that mystery element was pretty much blunted in regards of hiding who the real culprit is twice, because first off, this story is called The Robots of Death, so it was pretty much implied that the robots are in some way, shape, or form causing the trouble in the story, but they do kind of save it by revealing that the robots are being programmed to kill the people, and then there was a scene in part 3 when the robots were actually being instructed by someone who was, I think it was in front of a screen, but then it turned out to be one of the, well, I think it was Taron Capel, and that pretty much just blunted everything. So I pretty much caught that on immediately. So I think that aspect was ruined. The acting was very good, especially from Tom Baker and Louis Jameson. And as I said before, I think having Leela in this story actually did help out a bit, because she understands that the robots are kind of like the Walking Dead, and she pretty much captures the whole feel of like being a savage woman in the place of technology and lifeless robots and stuff like that. I gave the story an 8.5 out of 10. Second place is The Deadly Assassin. An epic story, and I love how ambitious the story was, especially having the Doctor go solo without a companion, and it really gives the fourth Doctor, as well as the Doctor overall, some great character development, especially how the Doctor realizing that, even though I think he had a feeling, but I think we definitely understand why the Doctor's so iffy about the Time Lords, because he doesn't know, he realizes they aren't as great as they made out to be, and what he initially thought, because they pretty much wanted to alter the events of what happened in the story just to fit their own narrative, and to try and make the Gallifreyans not lose their faith in the Time Lords. And I love the scenes in the Matrix where the Doctor is being pursued by Goth and the traps the Master has laid out. Especially the infamous scene where Goth was trying to drown the Doctor in part 3. And also like the other parts as well, when the Doctor was being chased by a plane, and there's just some other dusty stuff. And especially like the part 2 cliffhanger when the Doctor got his foot trapped on the train tracks. So there's just, obviously wasn't really there. I think Tom Baker did a great job in this story, especially having no companion there, which actually made the Doctor more brooding and so forth. And Peter Pratt did a great job as the Master, especially how scary the Master now looks, because the Master doesn't even look human, he's just burnt. But I don't think it was as good as Roger Delgado, to be honest. But nevertheless, in the epic story, and I gave that The Deadly Assassin a 10 out of 10. And in first place, The Talons of Ringchang. I bloody love this story, but I hate the racism. However, I love the Sherlock Holmes element and the Victorian London feel that this story actually had. I love Jago and the Lightfoot's friendship and banter, and I thought it was very funny. I think Tom Baker did a great job, and I loved how Holmesian the Doctor was in the story. Leela did a great job as well, and I loved how developed her character was, and I loved how her savage elements pretty much come into part in the story. And the considering fact she actually tried to kill Magnus Greel twice on 2 occasions. The villains were epic and memorable. It was very dark as well. Great memorable moments, like Leela almost getting chewed off by the giant rats, Lisanne Chang and the Doctor's magic performance in the the Palace Theatre in Part 4, and then which we found out that Casey the doorman was actually killed because he saw Magnus Greel's true face. There's so many moments I can name of the story. It's just so brilliant, and I give the story a perfect 10 out of 10. So to conclude, I would say season 14 is undoubtedly one of Tom's weakest seasons. It's still fairly strong, but it's weaker compared to some of the seasons, especially his earlier seasons. And I definitely say it's probably the weakest in the Hinchcliffe era. But it's not the worst, so I must admit. It's still enjoyable, but I think stories like The Face of Evil and The Hand of Fear pretty much bring this season down a little bit. So I give season 14 the grade B. So my next set of reviews will be season 15, Tom Baker's 4th season, starting off with The Horror of Fang Rock. And I'm also starting a new series called You Should Watch, where I'll be giving my recommendations on why you should watch the TV shows and movies I have seen. So thank you for watching this ranking video. Please let me know what you thought of season 14 as a whole and this ranking video as well. If you haven't done so already, please subscribe to my YouTube channel if you just randomly come across it, and the description for my Discord server is in the link below, the description box below, and until then, see you later.